Hi class, how are you? So here we are, we're going to continue studying the lesson of Egypt under the Pharaohs, and this is part 2. So let me share my screen with you, and we're going to start. Here we go. So this is part 2, it's going to be 4 parts. We already studied part 1. And this is Egypt under the Pharaohs, part 2. So civilization develops. More than 7,000 years ago, people began growing grains in the fertile soil left behind by the Nile floods. Over time, Egypt's farmers were able to grow more and more food. This food supported a growing population. So this is what happened. You can look at here in the picture on the left-hand side. This is where the Nile floods. So the water is covering all the land. But when the floods go down, they leave a very wet and fertile soil. That's why the Egyptians were able to have such an incredible system of farming and growing grains, because all their life depended on the flooding and the going down of the waters of the Nile River. The Nile River is completely essential in the development of the Egyptian civilization. So growing a surplus. Remember that a surplus is when we grow food and there is so much food that is what we call a surplus. There's more than what we need to consume, okay? So Egyptian farmers learned to build earthen walls around fields to trap the Nile's flood waters. The water soaked into the soil and allowed grains such as wheat to grow. The simple form of crop irrigation allowed farmers to produce a food surplus or an amount of food greater than their own family's needs, which is what we were talking about. That's exactly what a surplus is, when you grow more than what you need. So you can see here the earthen walls that they built around the fields to trap the water from the Nile River so that they can keep cultivating their crops all year round. They were experts in farming. So meanwhile, powerful people and families gained control over regions within Egypt. They were able to collect some of the farmers' surplus crops as taxes. So some of this surplus were collected as taxes, like it has happened in all civilizations in the ancient world. Now we're going to talk about the birth of cities. These local rulers used this surplus to buy rich cloth, jewelry, and luxury goods. These were supplied by merchants and artisans or skilled workers who practiced a handicraft. In Egypt, they were people that were specialized in arts and they were skilled workers that were specialized in making jewelry, in making bricks. So they had all these skilled people with specializations, okay? Here we have an example of jewelry, which you have seen many pictures about Egyptian people wearing all this, well, not really people, but drawings or posters about the jewelry that they used to wear. In New York City, at the Metropolitan Museum, there is a whole section dedicated to Egypt. I have been there several times, and I have seen all the exhibit of the old ancient Egyptian jewelry, and it's absolutely breathtaking. I mean, their skills in jewelry was absolutely fantastic. Farmers' production of a surplus supported these artisans. Some became full-time artisans, such as weavers or potters. Skilled artisans' products were much more advanced than similar products made by farmers. Artisans and merchants began to settle around the homes of local rulers. In time, these settlements grew into cities. So we have a depiction here in this drawing of artisans and skilled artisans specializing in different things. We have a carver over here, we have a weaver over here, and we have here somebody that seems to be blowing like glass. okay? So Egypt's cities brought together wealthy and skilled people. They became centers of culture and power. Skilled architects built impressive buildings, and artists created great works of art to decorate them. So we can see here the Sphinx, we can see a temple, we can see sarcophagus over here, but their art was absolutely amazing. And that's because, once again, they have skilled artisans in all the different types of art, drawing, architecture, and weaving, jewelry, etc. The kingdoms of Egypt. So we're going to talk about the two kingdoms of Egypt. During the year 3000 before Christ, two kingdoms developed in Egypt. The kings of Upper Egypt wore white crowns. Here we have the king of Upper Egypt. And the kings of Lower Egypt wore red crowns. Here we have it. Okay, so Egypt was divided into two different kingdoms. So uniting Egypt. Legends say that Narmer united the two kingdoms in about 3000 BC. This made him the first pharaoh or king of a united Egypt. He wore a double crown of red and white and founded Egypt's earliest dynasty. A dynasty is a ruling family. So here we can see how Narmer united both Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, and that's why he wore a crown with the two colors, red and white. Normally, control passed between members of a dynasty. Sometimes, however, a new dynasty gained power. Historians divide Egypt's history into periods based on kingdoms and dynasties. So we have here a chart with the different dynasties that ruled in Egypt, and you can look at this carefully later when you can see the video again, okay? But here's kind of an example of the Egyptian historical timeline. The Old and Middle Kingdoms. Historians call the period from about 2686 BC to 2012 BC, the Old Kingdom. Like later kingdoms, the Old Kingdom was a period of prosperity, political strength, and cultural achievement. So we have a picture here of Egypt, the Old Kingdom, and it was a kingdom of absolute prosperity, political strength, and a lot of culture developed in this period. After a period of civil wars, the Middle Kingdom began. It lasted from about 2055 BC to 160 BC. Pharaohs of the Middle Kingdom dealt with one of Egypt's major environmental changes, and that was the Nile floods. They built a system of canals that could drain dangerous flood waters and irrigate new farmland. So the flooding of the Nile River started changing, and sometimes it would flood too much, but the Egyptians were so smart that they devised this system of irrigation canals that could drain all the dangerous flood waters, and they could take this water to irrigate the farmlands at a very long distance from the river. So like I said before, they were incredible farmers. Their farming skills were absolutely incredible. High point and decline. The New Kingdom followed more civil wars and invasions. The New Kingdom lasted from about 1550 BC to 1070 BC. New Kingdom pharaohs conquered lands in Asia and Africa. This was the high point of ancient Egyptian power and prosperity. We can see here a picture of how they are going to war with arrows and horses, and they have shields and everything. So it was a period of a lot of civil wars and invasions. However, the New Kingdom eventually weakened and broke apart. So Egypt faced foreign invasions. One late dynasty gained power only with the help of the Assyrians. So the Assyrians helped the Egyptians. Still later, Egypt was conquered by the Persian Empire. In 322 BC, The Greek army of Alexander the Great conquered Egypt. And here we have a picture of Alexander the Great, which eventually we will be studying him. And he was incredible, all the land that he conquered and the empire that he made. He was one of the greatest conquerors in the history of the world. The Egyptian government. So the pharaoh ruled on bureaucracy. What is bureaucracy? Bureaucracy is a system of offices and officials that handle the businesses of government. The head of Egypt's bureaucracy was an official called the vizier. The bureaucracy collected taxes from farmers, and farmers paid these taxes mainly from surplus crops, as we were talking about before. So the vizier was sort of like the prime minister or the head of the bureaucracy. He was in charge of collecting all the taxes. So the bureaucracy took some of this surplus for itself. It distributed the rest to the priests, to the pharaoh, and to artisans and merchants who worked for the pharaoh. Egypt's bureaucracy and system of taxation were a model for later governments, including those of today. So even today, we follow the system of bureaucracy that the Egyptians installed thousands of years ago. So this is our lesson for today. We will continue with another part of this lesson because the history of Egypt is absolutely fascinating. So we will continue next time. I will see you guys on our next video. Take care. Bye-bye.